Thumbs up.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Julie's Jewels. We are so excited to be talking Way to Cool 2026 50K 10 miler. It's right around the corner. I mean, it's really close. I'm here tonight with we have lots of guests. We got Julie Fingar, the race director. How you doing, Julie?
I'm doing well. How are you?
James Barstad's here.
Hello.
He knows all the details about so much history, you know. And Luis Tomas is here, and we're all together talking about Neversecond tonight. So a new sponsor for the race. I'm here with Bill and Loren Armstrong. How you guys doing over there?
Doing
Really
great.
well,
Thanks so
thank
much for
you.
having us. Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited, Julie.
Yeah, we're very excited about this partnership. My stalking Bill, and I was manifesting this before that stalking took place. So I was very hopeful that we could do something with our races and introduce Neversecond to all of our runners in our community.
Yeah, if you've been at NorCal Ultra race, a lot of us do use all kinds of products, and a lot of us have been using Neversecond for a while. You use Neversecond a lot, don't you, these days?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So we're excited about the product. So we'll jump into some questions here tonight. So Julie, so we'll kick right into this, huh? So we talked about James and I watched some of the other stuff online about your product and history. So very fascinating backstory, you know. I guess the question is, what were you trying to solve? What was the essence of why this needed to be created?
That's a great question. I think it goes back to probably it's a mixture of I guess variables that made us launch Neversecond that drove us forward. First was as a runner, my experience with brands back in the kind of late 80s and early 90s, this kind of arc where they come in as the good guys here for endurance athletes, and then they head out towards mass market and gas stations. That was very common. I remember Power Bar was the original brand that I remember using. And then Lauren and I had a company after my running career wound down. We had a company where we did product development for brands, and we started to see that very familiar arc. And I think when we started Neversecond, we were like, gosh, it'd be really great to start a brand that really takes advantage of our skill set. We are product developers by background. That's what we did with our prior company before Neversecond. And it presented a unique opportunity to bring great products to a community that we know and love and have been an important part of our lives. And at the same time, not to pivot towards mass market, to really stay intentionally specialty and intentionally make uncompromising products for endurance athletes. That's really the main driver behind Neversecond and its genesis as a brand.
Can you tell us about the name Neversecond? How did you come up with that name?
Well, that was a very memorable, I would say, 6 to 8 week period where we have 4 partners in Neversecond. Lauren and I are the main primary investing partners in Neversecond. We have another partner named Oscar Jajkendrup, who's our main scientist, another partner, Zibi Slavchik, who is a Polish endurance athlete, is the 4th main partner in Neversecond. We have brought on additional partners, Lorenzo Luoni, who's our European manager. But the original 4 partners, it was probably the hardest process of coming up with a name because you have to first agree on it, and then you have to do legal review. So, and having come from some of that in our past life, we knew kind of areas that might be cause for concern. In the end, we landed at Neversecond because it was one of the first names we came up with. We had a bunch of names that we were exploring. I remember one of them was, Human Race. That was probably the first brand we came up with.
We really wanted that
We
one.
really wanted it, but Pharrell trademarked it the week before. And literally the week before. So we immediately went back to the drawing board and we really fell in love with the name Neversecond. It's really this combination of 2 words forming a unique word, which it was solid from a trademark perspective, and it really spoke to who we were as a brand, which it's this kind of name that allows you to fill it with whatever you want to fill it with. A lot of athletes that we work with see it as from a competitive perspective, which is not finishing second, but We see it really as this kind of open vessel that you can fill with life. So some athletes will say, okay, my priority is endurance sport or in training. And that's how they see the name. That's what it speaks to them. So it's stuck. It also I think it rolls off the tongue really nicely. It just kind of flows nicely. So it's been something that's stuck, and we knew we could do a lot with it from a marketing perspective as well.
And we were able to connect our tagline, actually, that Bill came up with, that just fits so well.
Got the science first, never second is our tagline, and it's what stuck, and I think works quite well for the brand as well.
Yeah, I think so. And the science is a big part of the brand and the product as well. And we'll talk more about that too. And I guess that kind of leads me to the next question. So then what makes Neversecond fundamentally different than other gels?
So I think we have a really great answer for that, I think. So early on in the brand, sort of Loren and I, having been entrepreneurs, we'd had another business before this. I think we've seen brands fail. And so for us, early on, we had the luck. We were introduced by Zibby Zlufchik to Oscar Juikendrup, who is our chief scientific officer. And early on in the formation of the company, we asked Oscar that kind of a key question that entrepreneurs should ask, which is, what's our unique position? What unique value are we bringing? At the time, we knew. And again, Loren and I have been out of the space for, really entering the endurance space and not having been actively in it. There was certainly some blind spots. So we wanted to listen to the experts, and Oscar is truly the global expert in performance fueling for the last 30 years. And he said, I think he said it best. He said, look, right now there's a lot of stuff in the market. And if you look at Instagram, you'll see countless brands screaming from the rooftops about being the best. And for us, it was really important to bring evidence-based products, ones that are supported by multiple source research studies, clinical trials and studies that can support the claims that we make. That was first and foremost. But beyond that, I think Oscar said, look, the big difference that we're going to be able to do as a brand is develop a system of products that it's not just selling gels. It's developing a system of products that allows athletes to perfect their protocol. And the reality is most athletes are used to, we've met them in many events. We were at 115 events this year, to give you an example. And every athlete we meet, or most of the athletes we meet certainly, combine products. They're confused and they're just taking different stuff. And they're usually hodgepodging a system together that works for them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And with Neversecond, we're really have a system of products that's meant to be mixed and matched. So we have the gels, the drink mix, bars. We have other products in development right now, which we're really excited about. And by using these 30-gram increments of carbohydrate, which reflect the global guidelines for endurance fueling, and 200 milligrams of sodium per 30 grams of carbohydrate, we're able to satisfy the vast majority of athletes out of the gate. And we have a system that allows you to manipulate or personalize. So if you're a marathon runner, you're taking gels and water, you have a solution. If you're a cyclist and you're typically they'll take drink mix in a bottle, maybe 90 grams an hour, and they might take a gel an hour for 120 grams. You have an easy system that allows you to precisely measure and perfect a protocol that works. All we're really doing, if you need to crystallize this, is we're taking professional protocol and making it easy so that everyday athletes can follow that protocol.
And best, what we did at the same time too was we took Oscar's science that he created and we brought it to life.
Yeah, that's the complicated part. There's so many brands out there, and there's so much you've learned, you've heard over your career, what to do, what not to do. And yeah, I just need to make it easy. Make it easy for me. Just give me a plan that I can stick to. That's really, that goes a long way.
Yeah, and we were able to talk to Rachel on Monday night at the nutrition webinar and learn all the numbers and ratios and everything we could geek out on about the product, which was super insightful. And I'm a student of the sport and love just to learn, even more about how it's entering your body, what it's doing, how it's, converting to that energy that you need and that fuel to keep you going. So we have a link to that on our website and in the e-blast that's coming out. So if anybody missed it, they can tune in for all the deets on that.
Yeah, I think, as at NorCal Ultras, we, of course, have several races throughout the year, but one of the things that our races are known for is we oftentimes get first-time trail runners or first-time ultra runners in our events. And so they're learning as they go. And I think if, we can help, and you guys are great to help us educate them on how to fuel for these kinds of races. Because those are the people that we have running our events.
Yeah, we have 148, I believe, running the Way Too Cool 50K next weekend as their first ultra marathon. Wow. And I believe in the 10-mile race, about 40 of them, this is their first trail experience. So it's, like James said, it's really fun to bring these new people into the sport and provide this arena where we can educate them on all of our great partners and people that we're working with, but why it's important to understand this to help them fuel and perform better.
Speaking of like stuff we've learned, we've all been runners for a long time, and these new runners, like the one question we like is that these myths, what are some of the myths in ultra running nutrition that you guys wish would you want to just correct? Anything that stands out as bad advice that we have heard that you guys just want to clarify with your product?
I think there are several myths that are constantly kind of buzzing around, but probably the one that we're hearing the most of right now is this. Well, as an endurance athlete, I think we're all easy victims with more is better. Generally speaking, I came from high mileage era where the more miles you ran, the better. It wasn't necessarily true, but that's what we did. And I think we fall easy prey to more of everything is better. Endurance athletes are inherently, I think, competitive around everything. They want to get the best out of themselves. They think they're really kind of looking at every little thing they could put towards making themselves perform better. And if they hear, like, for instance, ketones are going to make them perform better from a brand, they may start taking ketones blindly. And so I think the value that we can bring is a measured approach and a balanced approach. Sodium is probably the one right now. Sodium intake is probably the biggest error and kind of misleading information that's out in the market. There are a lot of brands pushing extremely high sodium intakes right now. And the reality is your average athlete, when you look, well, first of all, it's a complicated subject, first of all. So it's not just like take as much sodium as you possibly can. There are brands that are saying take 1,000 milligrams, more salt is better. All they're going to do is give people hypertension. There's at the very least stomach problems during events, and then at the very worst, hypertension, I guess, or possibly worse. What we're doing is balanced approach. We use 200 milligrams per 30 grams of carbohydrate, regardless of product, so that when you're taking, for instance, 90 grams or 120 grams an hour, again, carbohydrate intake directly relates to really duration and to a lesser degree intensity, but mostly duration. And so 200 milligrams per 30 lands you at 600 per 90 or 800 milligrams at 120. It's right in kind of the middle of that sodium loss bell curve. That's why we use that number. So taking 1,000 milligrams in a sitting, just a random arbitrary value, doesn't make any sense. And so that would probably be one of the biggest myths we see right now. The other one is the idea of one ratio, carbohydrate ratio, is better than another. A lot of scientists and brands speak in absolutes, mostly the brands. And we fall easy prey to better, the idea of better, and the reality is there is no ideal carbohydrate ratio. Now, Oscar, just to put this in perspective, Oscar, our chief scientific officer, is the scientist who largely took us from the dark ages of endurance fueling to now. So back in my race days, you were taking nothing and running a marathon, or maybe water, or maybe a gel, or a power bar. Goo came on really kind of in like I guess maybe 1995, it seems like, in terms of when they came on the scene. Oscar's research was in the early 2000s into the study of multiple transportable carbohydrates, which is really the basis of the gold standard of modern day fueling. So when you hear cyclists taking 120 grams an hour, it's a massive jump from 0 to 30 grams from the mid 90s. And that's largely owed to the study of multiple transportable carbohydrates. Now, since that study, we use 2 to 1, 2 parts glucose to 1 part fructose in our products. All of them are the same, so that when you mix and match, they're all 2 to 1. It is a very strong ratio in intakes up to 120 grams an hour, which covers the very vast majority of athletes. Right now, some brands are using 1 to 0.8 a different ratio, saying it's a better choice. The reality is there isn't a best choice. It just has to do with which one is optimal at what value of carbohydrate you're taking. And that's another big one that we see in terms of myths, just to answer your question. The biggest one is the sodium myth, which is more is better. The second is that one carbohydrate ratio is better than another. Those are probably the two biggest myths that we see right now.
Yeah, and still just a little bit further on the sodium one, just to think that water isn't hydration today is just bizarre.
Oh yeah, there are brands that are saying like take this instead of water. There's this kind of communication that when you're taking electrolytes, you don't need water. There's some of that communication going out right now. It's just all marketing shtick. And it's really, unfortunately, hard to discern what's science and what's myth or what's marketing shtick at this point.
Yeah. Now, sometimes we hear runners say that they can't tolerate gels. Why do you think that is? Why do some runners feel like they can't tolerate gels, or why can't they?
Well, so it's a very common comment we get at events. Again, we're at many events. We see thousands, if not tens of thousands of athletes a year, hundreds maybe. It's a lot. And when we talk to athletes, a lot of them say they hate gels or don't like gels or don't like them very much. It's because it has usually a matter of where they're coming from. So like, what have they been using? So not to pick on goo, but let's just say if they're using goo and it's a bit of a thick, pasty, sticky product, that may create an environment where they think all gels, this is their version of what a gel is. Our gels are an isotonic. They're not truly an isotonic product, but they're an isotonic gel, meaning they're very thin. There's much heavier water content in the gels. They absorb a lot faster, and you don't need to chase them with water. When people typically try them, they're blown away at the difference because it just redefines what they thought of a gel in the first place. You have now this growing gamut of thick kind of cake frosting type product like goo. You have Morton, which is really a heavy gel-lo type product. And then you have more thin type isotonic products like us or like an SIS. So it's quite a big gamut right now. The gel category has broadened quite a bit.
It's
And if
almost
something
like you
doesn't
need,
make you feel good, you tend to not, you're going to have that
Mhm.
perception. So a lot of them, the older gels with a lot of them are made from sugar, cane sugar, or tapioca syrup, or corn syrup. So if that's the source of the carbohydrate, you're not going to feel so good if you take more than one of those, most likely.
Yeah, those kind of imperfect carbohydrate ratios of bygone is also has dictated like they can only take 2 before they get sick, or let's say 45 grams an hour.
Yeah.
With our products, we're seeing like if you took like take our top, we work with most of the top trail runners. I mean, I would say a lot of the top trail runners globally, and we have a lot of data from their intake levels, and the vast majority are kind of between that 90 and 120 grams an hour, which is a big difference from an athlete who might be using a substandard product where they might be taking 30 to 60 grams an hour. So, and that's another thing. A lot of times athletes say they can't take a lot of product because they start to get sick. And that's just from past experience. Usually that's driving those decisions.
Yeah. I think all of us kind of came from the goo era, so to speak, where that was the only gel in town when, the market kind of exploded with Power Bar, one of my go-to all-time favorites. But man, I think I broke a couple teeth trying to eat that Power Bar sometimes.
I ate so many of those. I ate so many of those, Julie. So many.
I would like put them on my heater in my car, like to loosen them up because it was so I like chew that thing out so hard.
Well, if it's cold outside, forget it.
Man, forget it. So
we all know the original 3 flavors, right? There was what was it? Chocolate, malt nut, and berry.
Nut. Yeah.
They're great.
Yes.
The malt one was good. That was really good.
I still love the product. It's funny because I sometimes I hear people criticize the original Power Bar, and I'm like, yes, they would break your teeth if they were cold, but overall, a pretty good product.
I took it before every race I would do, and that was my pre-breakfast fuel, and loved it. And now the co-founder Jenny Maxwell, she developed the Jam Bar, as you know. So that's, I guess, kind of a 360 how it tastes and how you can chew it versus the original Power Bar, but it worked. And so, fuel was fuel back then, and your choices were so limited. So you just, at least for myself, just take whatever I can take that's going to help me, feel better, perform better. But now fast forward, we've got, as James said, there's so many brands on the market, which is fantastic, I think, because everybody, likes different things and has choices out there. But to the point of, the stereotypical, I don't feel good, I'm not taking any more gels. I sent this in an email on Sunday or Monday. I was guest coaching at the Fleet Feet Trail over the weekend. And one of the gals who just finished a run, she came in, her pack was loaded with Neverseconds. They were literally exploding because she loves the product. And one of the other folks in the group, he was like, I can't do gels. It's off limits. I won't do it. And she was like, here, you try this Neversecond, and this is going to change your life. And he's like, okay. He's looking at the packaging. He's like, I think I might be able to do this. Totally. I'm going to try it. So he ripped it open right there. Yeah. Took a sip, and he was like, okay, I think this might change my whole perception on that. So it was really fun. I wish I had it on video for you guys, because it was just
so cool. Thank you.
Just happened. And, but to the point, I think people get, have their stubbornness of if this is anything of those other kinds, not to narc anybody, but it's not going to work, and until they give it a go, try it, and they start to feel better, operative word, they feel better, they're going to become a fan instantly. So so I'm sure a lot of when you're at the expos is trying to negate that question and say, just give it a go. If you don't like it, that's okay, but just give it a go. And
there's a lot of people that come up, and the first thing they say, oh, it's if they're really novices or they don't know, they're like, oh, it's like a goo. That's kind of what they say.
I think to their credit, they've done a wonderful job of being the synonymous kind of leader in the space as being the first. They're the Xerox of energy gels. So they have built, I mean, gosh, I remember when the first one I ever had, it was probably 1996 or something. But they were the pioneer for sure.
Yeah, so Way Too Cool was the first actual event that Goo sponsored back in 94, 95, because Laura Vaughn, Bill's daughter, had the kind of the pilot of the Goo flavors, which was very limited at the time, and she brought them to Way Too Cool. There was a couple hundred runners, and you would just run the race with water and Gatorade, whatever was out there, and this plain flavored, I think maybe vanilla was there at the time, but plain Goo was kind of the thing, and be handing them out drugs, here, try this, try this, try
really
this.
Neat. Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, so yes, Goo goes way back with the history of our races, and and so they were a great company.
I'm thinking a logo. This is not your parents' Goo. We need need to convince people that it's almost like we need to get rid of the word gel too. We need a new word because
We
it's,
actually,
I'm,
funny story. We connected with the Power Bar, one of the original product developer for Power Bar, and we sent him our bars to have him just try them. And he said, "Okay, um, we built the old Coke, and this is the new Coke can." It's like it's newer, sleeker, and slimmer. He's like, "Thanks," but it was a really nice compliment coming from someone like
Yeah,
that.
he really liked it. It was
It's
really
to
neat to
kind of
talk to
bringing
him.
things full circle. I can't say enough. I've eaten probably 10,000 power bars in my life, so it was a really nice, a nice compliment coming from them, knowing that they were truly the pioneer in the space.
Mm.
nice. So speaking of runners, I know you guys, your website, I've seen a lot of the runners you guys sponsor. And how about for the normal person like me? I mean, when I have the same approach to feeling as like the leader?
I mean, it's a great question. So I think the reality is, I want to say more or less, yes. There's no absolutes, but we're really bringing. I mean, well, first of all, everyone's entitled, from our perspective, to the best quality product that we can bring. It's not a talent thing. I think early on, as we were developing the brand, as from a marketing strategy, it's you build these great products. Some athletes would come to us and say, "Is this for like normal people? Or is this only for like the fast people, the really fast people?" And the reality is, everyone has the same needs, more or less, from a feeling perspective. Um, kind of comparing people and athletes to cars. Some athletes will try, let's say I'm 54, but older, slower athletes might try and adopt a strategy of a young gun. We see cyclists, 55-year-old cyclists saying, "Hey, I'm going to do what Keegan Swenson's doing. He's taking 120 grams an hour. I'm going to try that." Not necessarily the best advice. A lot of these young professional athletes are highly trained. They're taking a lot of product every day, and so their guts are quite adapted. With older athletes and slower athletes like me, you might you're going to start to build up, not necessarily be able to kind of oxidize what you're taking in. And so those numbers might not be at the same level, but there are no absolutes. I mean, if you take a look at even with our professionals, the differential in numbers is quite surprising. Like I can tell you within our professional women, and we're mean the top, some are taking twice as much as the others.
And
And that's
remember, like
interesting.
everyone has the same problems.
Yeah.
Everyone has to gut train. All our professionals, and a lot of our professionals had a lot of problems before they met us, and we can proudly say that, not in a boastful way, but in a way that we were able to help them, or they used our products before they actually contacted us because it solved their problems. That was one of the biggest compliments that kept happening to us in the last couple of years, that they solved the problem through our products and then contacted us and wanted to work with us. And
We do,
that's wonderful.
and to that point, we see it. We do. I was going to say we meet with so many everyday athletes who aren't these professionals, and we spend more time obviously giving advice because there's many more people that are not superhero athletes. And the probably the biggest satisfaction we get from events is someone saying, "Okay." I mean, I have a wonderful story. I met a woman, Ironman world champs. She's in like not a professional, but pretty serious athlete, has Crohn's disease, and said to me, "Gosh, I hate my fueling. My coach told me to come here. I'm going to change before I do my Ironman in like 3 days." And of course, I can't say I wasn't a little bit nervous giving her advice, right? Like, you have Crohn's disease, you've never used the products. I think we're going to be fine, but we're also dealing with people here. And she made an absolute switch and came to me and said, "I'll never look back again." And that to us gives us great joy. When we have an athlete, whether it's a professional or the slowest person in the pack, saying, "You know what, I just don't have stomach problems anymore, and I'm able to take more in and feel better and perform better," that gives us a lot of satisfaction.
So what would you recommend maybe for the 50K runner, kind of middle back of the pack, and then the 10-mile runner? So with regards to way to cool, we have 5 aid stations on course. The Neversecond gels will be at all of the aid stations. We have detailed out what's going to be at every single station as far as what Neversecond gel flavors, both the caffeinated and the non-caffeinated options. And I don't know, for somebody, I know you love giving advice, but just, maybe speak to, do they want to take a gel maybe every hour if they are, assuming they're taking electrolyte and other things, when would be the best optimal time to, do they want to take a gel before you start? I do. I'll take a Neversecond about 15, 25 minutes before the start. And sometimes I'll sip on it. I won't take the whole thing all in one shot. And I'll just kind of slowly bleed to the start of the race. But that works for me, and I've tried that. But for the person maybe that's just new.
Well, so as I was going back to kind of the simplicity, one of the things we really do as a brand is simplify a protocol. I think that as an athlete coming in, just at a very basic level, of things that matter are energy, carbohydrate, sodium, fluid. Those are your 3 necessities. And with our products, when you're taking them, you don't even need to worry about the sodium because it's already in there at the right level. So just remove it from the equation. So now it's really how much carbohydrate and how much fluid do you need to take in. With runners, trail runners, if they're going with our gels and some kind of fluid on course, I would be targeting 500 ml to set, depending on the heat, depends on how hot it is, but like 500 ml would be in cooler temperatures, take net per hour. So that would be electrolyte or water on course, and then the rest is gels. Everyone's going to be pretty safe with a gel every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's, to me, I would take one before the start, maybe 15 minutes pre-start, and then to take the first one at 30 minutes in, or as close as you can. I know there's aid station, obviously practical considerations with aid stations, but one every 30 minutes would be very achievable for even your older or slower athletes. 60 grams an hour is pretty achievable with our products at events that are 2 hours and longer. Okay. If someone's going out for and they're going to finish in like an hour 30, you can get away with one gel before the start and then maybe one gel at 45 minutes. Let me just explain that really quickly, just like why. What's happening when you're exercising is you're depleting glycogen. And so the longer you're out, the more you need to replace those reserves. So let's take an extreme. I'm going out for an hour run. I really don't need anything because there's no chance of me depleting glycogen in an hour. However, if you want to take a gel 15 minutes before, fine. If that's something that works for you, it's fine, but you're really at no risk. When you start getting up to 2 hours, now you start depleting at a level that you could start to hit the wall or hit bonk at kind of maybe an hour 45 in, 2 hours in. And so we recommend 60 grams an hour. So it's a gel every 30 minutes. Easy. When you start going up to really long events, like 3 hours and longer, that's where you start to shift up towards 90 grams an hour. And in some cases, like Ruth Croft, she takes about 120. Abby Hall does as well, about 120 grams an hour. And the reason we recommend that you need that is because you're depleting now you're at a long time, and now you need to have a sustainable replacement. And that's why really at 3 hours becomes that pivot point where maybe 90 grams an hour might be in your best interest because you want to be actively replacing it. Let's say you're doing a really long race you might be out for 10 hours. That's the longer the event is, the more your fueling plan needs to be solid. Like you can make a lot of mistakes in a half marathon. Like you can make a mistake there and it's not going to be dire. However, if you're running a 100-miler and your fueling is off by 30 grams an hour, you might start to have an issue at hour 12 because you have a deficit. And so that's really the basis of fueling. So if I was to give clear advice, it'd be a gel 15 minutes before the event, one every 30 minutes for events that are 2 hours and longer. And then for an event that is less than 2 hours, you can get away with just maybe one gel mid event would be enough.
Now you mentioned somebody, if they're under fueling, they might have start to feel some problems coming on. What are some of those early signs that they're under fueling?
With bonking, it unfortunately it can come on quite quickly. I'm just speaking to the room here. How many of us have bonked before where we really like empty out? And it happens
Oh
pretty
yeah,
fast. Like it
everybody.
seems you feel pretty good, and
Yeah.
then really quickly not good. And it's just your reserve is empty. The thing is so the best advice I get is not going there in the first place because it's hard to correct once it happens, right? So the best advice is fuel early, fuel often, fuel consistently, and avoid it in the first place. So it's really a matter of prevention. But I will tell you this, I think just kind of looking at the last 20 years, let's say pre-Morton, I'm going to give Morton some credit here. Pre-Morton taking anything was I think Morton did a good job of taking us from taking nothing to taking something. And athletes had a very positive outcome by taking something. And what we're really trying to do is to say it's not just about taking something, it's about taking the right level of something. And that's really now where the numbers really matter. So that's where that 60 grams an hour, one gel every 30 minutes can really make a massive difference in performance and how someone feels. I mean, if you look at some of the studies that Oscar's done, like it's a really interesting number, but if you take one test they did where it was placebo to glucose, showed a 9.1 up to a 9.1% improvement in performance in a specific study that they did. And then when they went into a multiple transportable carbohydrate, it was an additional 7.6% improvement. So when you look at like what's happening in sports, these massive improvements in time, I mean, you're seeing like we're living in an era right now where look back 5 years, look at what they're doing now. It's totally different. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to go close to saying that that fueling is the only reason, but it is one of the key reasons that you're seeing these massive breakthroughs is because athletes were taking 30 grams an hour and now they're taking 90 and they're able to sustain their energy and not have these lows during events. They're able to perform consistently better through the course of the event. And that we're seeing across cycling. I mean, ultra running, in trail running, we're seeing these just massive breakthroughs. And I think a lot of it has to do with fueling.
How should athletes adjust for heat? Or does heat make a difference with fueling?
Well, fueling, it's kind of a balancing act. So let's take a cyclist riding in the winter might go out for a 5-hour ride. They might need 90 grams an hour, but they're only sweating out a half a liter. Now let's fast forward to the summertime, same 90 grams an hour, but now you're diluting it over 1.5 liters as an example. So it's a balancing act of altitude and heat sometimes may impact your ability to take in carbohydrate. Like typically we see when athletes go up at higher altitudes, really high temperatures, sometimes they have a harder time getting those higher values of intake of carbohydrate. And sometimes they just usually honestly, fluid is the biggest issue that we see is more dehydration and balancing how much fluid and sodium they're taking in is probably the bigger consideration. But we do definitely see that there's some impact at altitude and with heat on carbohydrate intake, how much they can actually take in. Some athletes are fine at high temp, some are not. But fluid is probably the biggest area for concern, more than carbohydrate intake.
Speaking of salt myths, is it a myth somebody that's very salty, either they need a lot of salt or you sweat out what you don't need? Some people are just really salty. Their clothes are really salty, and some are not. Is it just taking too much salt, or is that just what is that about?
Well, so we're entering into a really unique partnership right now with a sodium testing wearable. It's a really good point to talk about that for just a minute. We currently, aside from I've already talked that we use 200 milligrams of sodium per 30 grams of carbohydrate in the products. And then we have a product called S200 Sodium Booster, which allows you to further personalize the sodium level in our drink mixes. So if you're an athlete and let's say you you're a heavy sodium sweater, and I was going to say there are a category of athlete that are defined as heavy sodium sweaters that a small percentage, 5% or less, that are outside that 5 to 800 milligrams per hour. Um, the problem is that that's not what we see when we're at events. When we're at events, 80% of people think they're heavy sodium sweaters, but they're not, just because they have white clothing and they have some markers. So we're going to now, I think, over the next couple of years, I think one of the big developments is going to be, and we're starting to see a lot of interest, is in athletes wanting to know what their sodium and sweat loss rates are under different conditions because they can vary by condition. There are a range of products on the market right now. Some are better than others. One, like for instance, spot testing sodium loss, it's not very accurate. You want to be testing over a period of time under different conditions to know how your body is. And that the problem is we're having athletes buy S200 or use LMNT or a range of other sodium products without knowing what their sodium loss actually is. So they could be doing more harm than good. Give you two great cases in point. One cyclist we work with, probably one of the best in the US, if not the best right now in the gravel scene. She's a low sodium sweater. She was at Unbound Gravel 3 years ago. She was adopted that of the same protocol as a heavy sodium sweater. She had stomach problems, likely caused by just taking in way too much sodium. He sweats out 1,500 milligrams per hour. She sweats 250. So he's like 6x her sodium loss. So it's quite a big differential between athletes, and it's important to kind of understand how you are different. And that's going to be, I think, the next frontier is going to be into testing sodium and sweat loss so that athletes can be much more accurate in prediction and adjust their fueling and electrolyte protocols, if you will, based on what they actually need, not what they think they need. That's probably, I think, the biggest frontier that we're going to be encountering over the next 2 years.
Oh, fascinating.
Well, what would you say is your favorite Neversecond product?
Oh, brand wise, huh?
Gosh, who doesn't like the gels? I mean, I just love the gels. The gels are great because I think the drink mixes, it's funny. The drink mixes are kind of like so effective, but you don't get the bang out of them that you get with like the gels just taste great. And they really redefine the taste in gels. The drink mixes are intentionally very neutral, so they're just never going to kind of get that great taste that you get out of the gels. I think the gels, to me, I like the passion fruit gels. I just think they're fantastic, and probably citrus. I also like the lemon bars. I think they're a really good product. The protein
I
P30
was
is
going to say the protein's mine, and our new protein P30, well, recovery P30 C30. That's just like your reward for doing what you just did. It's like a fribble. It's delicious.
You like rewards.
Yeah.
So, Bill, you've talked about yourself doing a little bit of running in the past. I mean, you mentioned even 90s and 80s even. Is there anything you can share about your own running background?
I never speak about my running anymore. It's been a long time. I feel like I'm talking about my grandchildren or something. I was a halfway decent runner and would be embarrassed by today's standards. I truly am just loving. It's funny. I remember as a competitive athlete just being so driven by your own accomplishments. And now I truly, honestly can say that I get absolute pleasure out of watching other people. Like I feel no pang like while other people are racing. I'm not like, "Oh, I wish I was there." I have no interest. I just want to support them. Right now,
But he's being very humble. He was an outstanding elite runner,
halfway
and he
decent.
also was a Nordic skier. So his VO2 max is insane.
I was I never but I really truly love talk. I'm just amazed by what goes on right now. I have the athlete mindset where I think I really understand I love talking to our professionals because I really can get, I think that things don't change that much in terms of we're thinking the same things and they have the same fears and anxiety and what it's like to race. I mean, I still love being at races, just being around it, but I just love watching other people do amazing things. And at this point, just helping them do that. That just gives us, that keeps us moving as a brand. We're certainly as competitive as a brand, but I'd say we're able to kind of take out that competitive mindset and feed that with the business itself, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Your team was just well if we dug into your Nordic skiing background and your professional running, how much we could get out of you. So we can't say we didn't try and squeeze a little bit out of the sponge there, but yeah. Well, did you have a favorite race or one experience during your professional career that you immensely enjoyed?
I mean, I had met great people along the way, friends. I think that's probably what I remember the most. I mean, to me, gosh, I had anxiety like everyone else. I had some good races, I had some bad races, I had some DNFs, you know, but I retired young. I mean, I didn't really, to me, I was very practical about it. I feel like right now when we work with a lot of professional athletes, you see right now, like even if you look at like what's happening in like the ultra landscape, the trail running, where you're seeing times drop and then there's a new face every day. To me, that's just incredible to me. I mean, I remember just as a competitive runner, just being like, I'm not going to get any better, And I'm like, truly, I remember thinking that pretty convincingly especially towards the end when I was like, all right, I have to call it quits. Um, I'm just amazed at the breakthroughs we're seeing now. I mean, to me, it's truly amazing to me I just looking at these athletes like, I mean, so what we look at Katie Scheid, some of what she's been doing, what Ann Flowers just did at Black Canyon to me was absolutely incredible. Did not see that coming. To me, what I see Keegan Swenson doing and Sophia Villafan, or what the season she's off to right now, that stuff is just absolutely astounding to me. And that's far more interesting than any running that I ever did. So,
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned a lot of women's names, and
mhm.
I've seen. I follow racing, but women's races. It seems is there more changing in the women's race than the men's race, or is it just what I hear on my feed?
I mean, I think what happened at Black Canyon was just that was like it felt like Western States to me. I mean, I know it seems to be with the women's. I'm just seeing just this incredible change, like this just breakthrough after breakthrough, and it's just like there's no limits on it right now. It's pretty interesting to watch. I think it's happening in the men's too. I mean, we're announcing a few new athletes that we're really excited to be bringing on board in the next couple of weeks, and to me, it's just like there's I think it's happening in the men's. I mean, I think if you look at what happened at Western this past year in the men's, I think it was really just it was relatively, I'm going to say, lesser known athletes. And um, I think there's a lot of young 20 somethings that are just going to do. I mean, we're seeing also like, I feel like ultras and trail run was more like what you did when you were retiring from road running or something like that, or a different sport. And I think also you're just seeing this kind of influx of, hey, I'm at my peak and I want to do trail running and I don't want to race road. And yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of these very young athletes who are really fast getting in the sport, and um, they're looking at it with a different lens that, hey, I'm just going to try a trail race now and again. They're coming in saying, this is what I want to be my sport. I think a lot of we're seeing a lot more sponsors in the space too, which I think is quite interesting. A lot more brands getting involved, and there's certainly more money in the sport now, a lot more opportunity for athletes, and I think that's really opening their eyes to they don't have to make a decision between this or that. They can maybe be a trail runner and make a living at it, which I think is a really exciting time.
So one formula question. Speaking of genders, speaking of Nordic skiing, speak of bike racing.
Mhm.
It's a dumb question maybe because I'm not a nutritionist, but would a your formula should work for no matter what the sport is, but there's probably some variability if you're a cyclist versus a trail runner. Trail running is a little more maybe variable, and is that the case, or is your formula pretty much if you can stick with 90, grams an hour, 60, no matter what your sport is, what your gender is, you should be good.
There's some different sport to sport. Runners definitely are more challenged than cyclists.
Mhm.
So if you were to kind of go through the hierarchy, the differences, like in terms of like who you're most, like if you took triathletes as like the extreme users of product, they use the most of the most technical athletes, nerdy, triathletes. We work with a number of triathletes. They're definitely the nerdiest ones. They want to know every little detail. And their intakes are quite high on the bike, right? Not taking anything on the swim, and in the run, they're basically using a marathon protocol. Cyclists, we see typically 120 grams is kind of the standard. There are athletes, rare exceptions, that take 150 grams an hour, which is extreme. Don't know if it's always necessary. I think they're always pushing to see if they can benefit from it. But the more it's important to note, the more you're taking in, there's more risk of getting sick no matter what you're taking. Um, with trail runners, I think um, they've been really involved in learning it for the past 5 years. And I think that to your point, it's more variable. If you're like, there's a difference between someone running a 50K and someone running a 100 miler in terms of their needs. So I think that's an important difference. When it comes to road marathoners, they're probably the most to be gained right now. Like the road runners right now are really I think they're a bit behind, but catching up quickly, showing a real interest and kind of following. I feel like cyclists is like a lot of the runners have been watch cycling and they kind of learn from that. Cyclists are pretty advanced in terms of their fueling protocol. Trail runners definitely, I think, ahead of road runners, and road runners are kind of catching up. But trail runners, I think, are going to see a lot of improvements over the next few years as they continue to adopt and improve their protocol. I think gut training is probably an important part of that. Like a lot of them are not gut training; they're just kind of like taking stuff on race day. We have a lot of athletes say, "Hey, I'm going to use Neversecond on my race day because I want to save the good stuff for race day." It doesn't really work like that. They'll ask us like, "What does gut training look like?" And I think that's an important thing. We're not trying to have people take Neversecond all day, every day, 7 days a week. We're recommending maybe 2 key workouts a week that you rely on fueling to really use it so that you're at least familiar with the products and how your body works with them. So it's not an everyday thing. It doesn't have to be super expensive. So I think that's an important consideration. But I think trail running, generally speaking, go back to duration. I think the top end for trail runners without gut training is really 90 grams an hour. There are exceptions. I mentioned some of our athletes that are taking 120. I don't see it very often. And I could tell you many world-class athletes in the trail running space are taking less than 90. Most are between 60 and 90.
But then it comes down like the differences would be then the systematically between the different sports of what the mix would be. So
Yeah.
what that's I think that was kind of what you were asking too. Like that would be the difference. They could still take, let's say, on average 90, but how are you going to get that? On a bike, you drink a lot, you have a lot more hydration, and they're actually better off of getting it from than our, C30, making it a C60 or a C90 in a bottle, and then maybe taking a gel an hour. But you're not going to do that when you're running.
I'm eating quesadillas for the most part.
And
So
you'll be eating some real food. That's something
yeah,
Yeah.
that cyclists don't do as much, even on those really, really big races or rides well, they'll do it when they're training. They just seem to love to stop at those gas station marts and have a hot dog. But
Yeah,
but and candy. Candy's a big one, right? But it's the mix then. It's and that's what's so great about our system. It's the mix.
I think with the trail runners, generally speaking, we also see a mix where the gels are still their go-to. I mean, like if you were to say what is a mix for a trail runner, it's usually the gels. They should be taking the C30 sports drink, usually at a 30-gram concentration, maybe 60 if they can manage that. That's how we look at the fluid this way. If you're drinking water, you might as well drink a sports drink in the water because it's going to help deliver the fluids better than water alone. So it's important to think of it that way. And trail runners also generally use bars, and there's no real practical reason except that road runners will never use bars. Cyclists will use them in training, but not in racing. And trail runners love them. Trail runners use bars because they want something to chew on and they have moments that you were talking like the one thing about trail running that doesn't exist with a lot of these other sports is it's more variable. You might be going through a flat period where you're going to be like you're running full tilt. then you might be doing like an uphill or a downhill, which might be a good feeding time. So it's a bit more variable. And a lot of times, like, eating and like having something just to give that satiation of chewing is something a lot of athletes look for. And so trail runners, I can say just from our experience, use a lot of our C30 fuel bars as well, just to have something to chew on.
They're delicious. Delicious.
How'd you like them?
Should we talk about community and
Yeah, sure. Now I know you mentioned that you go to a lot of events every year. How many events have you gone to in the last year? I understand you're traveling right now, in fact, to attend an event.
So early on, so Lauren and I are in our 50s, right? And so like everyone, we look at Instagram and we're all constantly have this scroll of nutrition brands screaming from the rooftops. And early on, we're like, gosh, this just doesn't feel like us, and we want to be. And so we started doing events. And the first event we did was 24 hours in the old Pueblo. It's a 24-hour mountain bike race in Tucson. Todd Sadow, amazing guy, cool race. I did it with my son, and I came back saying, "This is the path forward." It was brutal. I mean, he and I just were like just about to have a fist fight during this event because it was like 40-mile-an-hour winds. Like, couldn't the tent was blowing away. But the people were amazing, and we had such a good time. We were like, "This is the way." Like, and to me, aff- it confirmed what I've loved about endurance athletes is the community aspect. And then we're like, well, how does that work? How do we juxtapose kind of being a performance brand and being more about community? And really, we want to be both. We want to be a high performance, uncompromising products, but we want to be in a kind of an important part of the fabric of the endurance community. And so we just started doing events. And that's across all sports. As a brand, we've rolled out by sport very intentionally. We are global in terms of where we are located. And you can't just be like, oh, we're in every endurance sport in every country at one time. Like, no one would, I think, believe that. And so we rolled out really from triathlon and road cycling into off-road cycling, so gravel and mountain bike. And then we were like, well, dirt people like what we're doing. Let's try trail running. They should like what we're doing. And we had a really good response. And then now we're moving into road and track as well, running and really focusing more heavily on our road cycling as well. So we're really kind of entering full throttle in terms of addressing each market. So now at this point last year, we did 105 events globally. So roughly 30 in Europe and then 70 something in the US. I was probably at 50 something of them. We have an amazing event team that we've been building. Ryan Linder is our event manager. He's an amazing guy, and he's been building out the team. And last year, I think we showed up to a lot of events. We served great product and we're there, and I think we're an important part. But we as a brand, I think we humbly always want to challenge ourselves to do a better job. So our challenge now is to bring real value to events wherever we can. And and a lot of times you have to do events to kind of see they all have unique personalities and we're really kind of at this point figuring out how we fit in and how to bring value to the event, whether it's doing a talk like this, like an interview like this, or it's doing a webinar. Um, Something at an aid station, like an aid station activation, where, in talks with some races around doing some really unique aid station activations. But really, how do we bring real value to those events that are good for our partners and good for the community? Like last year, we did this newspaper with Free Trail, Dylan Bowman, and we did this newspaper around Western states and TrailCon and Broken Arrow. And that was our unique way to kind of bring value where we could connect the partners at the event. So we worked with all the different exhibitors and local businesses to create a kind of a newspaper, like a throwback newspaper. And that we had a lot of fun doing. So we're really just trying to kind of creatively bring value wherever we can to our event partners. And I
And the
think
best way that we
that's
could come
what's
across with education, because education means so much to us. So it's like, how do we do that? Do we
yeah.
just like if we're just gonna like put it out on Instagram or other like through like email campaigns, that's only gonna go so far. But if you can't talk to the people, be where the people are, our people, right? And talk to them about the product, have them try the product. We sample our products at every event. We're not just standing there. It's not about selling it. It's about try it. Let's talk about it. What are you doing? What's your plan? Right? That's like one of Bill's biggest question. What's your plan for tomorrow?
Yeah, we
And
spent a lot of
how many
time.
people don't have a plan? Too many, unfortunately. But if we talk to them, at least then we could let them know what we would suggest, whether they use our product or not. It's the basis of the science so that they could get close to it. But it works. We knew that was going to be our way after the first couple. It was the only way to do it. And from that, especially Bill does a lot of them. Someone has to do the back end, right? But, and,
The real
and
work. Yeah.
but it's the way to connect with the people, to build the relationships and just be a part of it because we had a prior business before this and now this is like okay, the reason why Bill wanted to get back into it right away into doing something else was to get back with his people, as he always says, so he's where he wants to be. So it's a nice, and then all of our team, everyone who works for us feels the same way. They're all athletes. So it's a nice way to connect.
Yeah, you guys sent out an email a couple weeks ago just talking about community and being a part of events and being there and experiencing and meeting those athletes. And I just was like, oh my gosh, this is NorCal Ultras. This is us. Like, I'm so happy we aligned on that. And not that I was spying on you, Bill, at Tucson Expo, but I bought some product from you and because I forgot mine at home. And after I, got my product and your daughter was there helping too. But I just heard you talking to each person, just like Lauren said, just really asking and connecting, like, what's your plan? What are you doing? Like, who does that nowadays? It's really hard to come by where, again, not to narc any particular brands, but, spending that time connecting and creating that relationship and that person's going to remember, oh, Bill told me this or suggested this. And, it goes a long way, the connections that you're fostering by being at these expos. And trust me, I know, because I used to travel the expo circuit when I worked for the California International Marathon here in Sacramento for, the entire year. Every week I was at another event, promoting the Cal International, and expos can be hard. It can be a grind, talking to people, but that's where I for sure felt the most, kind of community is people coming up and saying, love your event, love what you're doing, keep doing it. And personally, now in the race directing sphere, that's what we love, when people just have the times of their lives, and not just the runner, like their crew, their spectator, their family, friends that are coming and being a part of the event. So we really try to, bring the community together at our races.
That's great. Glad it aligns. And we'll be at Packet Pickup too. So it's another opportunity for us to connect with all your great runners there.
And so can they buy the Fleet Feet in Folsom? Would they have Neversecond on? So if I'm going to race, I'll be able to buy some there and pack my vest for this before they start?
Kirk is stocking up, and we'll also be there sampling.
Yeah, I was going to say we're one of the most energetic individuals that I know of, and is a big fan of the product, and we really like our partnership with them for sure.
Yeah, he's a good guy. We like him too. Well, we are very excited and grateful and appreciative to partner with you for this year for our races, and hopefully for the future to come. But we're really excited to educate and bring the products on course to all of our events, and hope people feel what we feel and perform better and really have that connection.
We wanted to say thank you so much for having us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we
Yes.
very much look forward to working with you all, and it's going to be an exciting year for us.
Yeah. So we will have a live stream at Way Too Cool. So I know you won't be there, but we'll send you that link to if you want to tune in and just kind of see the ambiance going on race day. And we'll try to get some photos and things your way so you can see what's happening on the ground here with Abby, Amelia. Not sure who's coming, but yeah, and we'll look forward to reconnecting after this, and we'll put this on our NorCal Ultras YouTube channel probably tomorrow sometime too. So that'll be up there for our runners and community to see. So I'm sure they're going to find a lot of insight and value. We got a lot of great feedback, just so you know, on the webinar we did with you and Scratch collectively, and I think people were very excited to dive into all the science of everything.
Good.
That's great.
We heard good things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lauren, stay warm.
Thank you. I will.
Bundle up. Bill's gonna soak in some rays and heat for you.
Try. We'll do our best.
He always comes back sunburned, and I'm like, it's freezing.
I have no protection. If you haven't noticed, there's no protection at all. So,
well, we hope maybe at some point you can make a trip. Keep coming west to one of our races if it aligns with your schedule in the April or November is our 100-miler event in November. So yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate the offer.
Love to have you.
We'll definitely do our best to be there. Appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.